Question of the day. This one's a little bit more hypothetical. Bryan, you talk about long games on here. Twilight Imperium, Twilight Struggle, 1800 games, 18xx games. How do you convince your friends and family to play them with you? Well, sadly, there's not always a good answer for that, and sometimes you don't. So, if you've got the group for it, what is your favorite long game to play? We actually have the Colonists set up on the table right now. That is a 6+ hour game because it's an engine building 4 era thing that you can break up if you want to, which is what we do. But let me know in the comments below what your favorite long game is right now, because today we're talking about 1880 China. This is the 18XX version games. Yeah, 1880 China. I had to make sure the year was right. All about Chinese railroads, and is an 18XX game, which is a system of removed direct interaction, which means you play as an investor who can invest in different train companies, and you will act for the train companies that you are the prime investor, the chief investor in, the top shareholder, basically. But you can also own shares in other people's train companies, which means you may act as the blue character, the orange character, the red character, the green character, and other people will benefit from that, as well as you can have shares in another company and get points and money from that. So let's talk about 1880 China, what it does, what it is. We'll come back up, talk final thoughts right now. All right, this is 1880 China. Now, I'm not going to give you a full overview of how to play an 18X game, but essentially you're going to be putting these tiles out on the board, running your trains through cities, and as you run those trains, you're going to collect points. But what's interesting, as with any 18XX game, this is a one step removed, I can't remember, indirect player control game. What that means is you'll have these different companies, and there are a lot in this game, different companies, and instead of you playing, oh, I play the red player, no, you'll be the president or director of one of these companies or multiple of these companies, and you will act for those companies. However, if somebody outbids your shares or has more shares in that company than they will then start acting for that run of trains, which is pretty cool. This is a stock board, a little flimsy. I'm not crazy about the component quality in this one compared to like a Chesapeake or something like that, where it's nice, thick, chunky boards and wooden components, but this one has a whole lot going for it. And it has a wrinkle that I really enjoy. So check this out. In the different phases, you need building permits to build. So instead of just saying, okay, well, I'm going to build, track, and play, you can only build based on the building permits that you have. So there's a trade-off here. You can build and act in phases A, B, C, and D if you're 20% owner. Now what's interesting is you can now float companies at 20%, unlike some of them where you have to have 40 to 60% in there. You can start acting. Basically, it gets the action started much sooner in this game. That doesn't mean it's a shorter game. Of course not. It's going to be still a 4 or 5 hour game. In fact, it says 5+ hours on the box. And the reason that is because of all this running of trains. It doesn't end until the bank is broken, usually twice. But once that bank is broken, you then count who has the most money, and the person with the most money wins. There are still private companies, but there's also foreign investors, and the foreign investors will act too. So you can check the order of actions and see who acts first, but essentially private companies will act, the foreign investors will act, and then you can act as your companies. But you'll buy out the private investors, you'll buy out some of these Russian investors, and what's really cool is because this is a historical game, it features like interesting wrinkles like the Maoist takeover. And when Mao takes over, there's no more stock. The stocks don't exist. You constantly just play until 1990 happens and the Taiwan. It's the stock market opens back again in the 90s. So you see a full-fledged history of the rail system in China and how it closes down and opens back up. It's pretty interesting. But much like any 18XX game, you're going to be running these routes, collecting the money for them. You can choose whether that money goes directly back into the company, which will drop the stock price, or if it pays dividends to the investors, which is pretty cool because it means that other companies, other players by that, can own stock in a company that you're running. So if I own 20%, I'll score 2 shares of the amount of the price that was run. So if it ran for $200 and I have 2 shares, you'll break that up and give me the money I am owed, and then the stock price will rise. Then you can buy and sell stocks of that company. You sell it for the share price, and when you initially float the company, you'll set its par value, or when you initially invest in the company, you'll set its par value, which means the initial stock price sold from the shares company is set by this, but then after it's completely sold, you can buy shares from the bank for whatever the current stock price is, and you sell them for whatever the current stock price is. So there's a lot of interesting mechanics going on in this version of an 18xx game. I will say now here, even before the final thoughts, this isn't the first one you need to play. You need to play an 18 Chesapeake or an 1830 or something like that. 18, yeah, because this one is a lot more intricate in what it does, but there's a lot of cool wrinkles. The building permits are a cool wrinkle. The fact that there's the foreign investors, and then also the fact that companies can float with far fewer shares being out there is pretty cool, which gets the action going a lot sooner. So that is 1880 China. So that's it. So if you've ever played an 18xx game, I recommend, obviously this one by far, I recommend playing this one, I should say. If you've never played one but are interested in the genre, definitely pick up 18 Chesapeake. It is the fastest, quickest way to get into 18xx gaming. Now, if you haven't played any of those and you still kind of want to dabble in it, Rio Grande did some a few years ago that were really good for kind of dipping your toes in the different aspects. Iberian Railways, Southern Railways, all those different ones. But this one, let's talk art direction, and then final gameplay as we normally do in my reviews here on the Dice Tower. Now, a couple things to notice. Obviously, 18xx games, no one has ever gone, wow, that is a great looking game. Save maybe 18 Chesapeake. It does have some nice little added touches that make it a little smoother and cleaner. But this one is definitely in the older genre. A couple things I want to ding it for right off the bat, but I get it because it keeps production costs low because there are a lot of train companies in this one. I prefer the mats to be cardboard, solid cardboard, as opposed to paper. These are paper mats, and it drives me crazy. They're a little floppy. The discs themselves are paper. The things you put out on the board are paper. The only thing that's not really would be the cardboard with the train, like the railway tiles. Those are nice as well. Now, the art is good in this game. It does have really good art as far as the trains, as far as the shares, the companies, all that sort of stuff. The board, bland as heck, as always, which has always been a gripe of mine. I feel like you could probably put some more art on the board to really drive more people into the genre. I feel like this is a genre that has a lot of people looking out from the outside going, man, I want to try that, but I just don't want to try that at the same time. So the art obviously is not that great. Component quality is okay. A couple things really stand out. The art is good on the cards, but not great quality. Now, as far as art direction, well, there's really no symbology in an 18xx game. There's nothing like, this symbol means take two of these. There's nothing like that. So you really can't ding it too much on art direction as far as facilitating, except there are some slightly confusing things that happen on the board, like can I replace this tile with this tile? Well, thankfully, there's a pretty handy reference for that. So it is a lot to swallow at first, but you do kind of get what the game is saying. Now, as far as gameplay, I love 18xx games because I love how they play. I love being able to invest in another company, sell off my shares of this company where I don't even act for that player anymore, but I, keep a share or two, get the money from it. I love that kind of interaction. I love the stock market rising, falling values. And if you like stock games and you don't want to play a 7-hour game, try something like Stockpile, where you get that taste of it and that flavor of it, but in a way that's a lot more inducive to, man, I really want to play that. But this one, I like the changes that it has over some of the other 18x games. I like those foreign investors. I like the fact that the game historically plays where when Mao takes over, well, you can't do anything really share-wise. The state owns it. And then the Taiwanese, I think Shanghai stock market. Anyway, the stock market opens up in the 90s again, and then boom, we're back in business, and trains are slinging all over. All right, now as far as how does this one stack up as an 18xx game? Well, first of all, I really like this one. Now, is it the one I'm going to recommend first out of the gate? No, that'll be 18 Chesapeake and 1830 because those are the most straightforward ones. This one adds enough wrinkles, though, where if you're a fan of the genre, you're going to love this one because of the tweaks and twists and turns that it does. So, at the end of the day, 1880 China 8.0 for me. I love this genre. I love what this adds. It would probably be a little bit higher. It's a 7.5. It would be an 8 if the components were a little better. And again, I get that because of cost and things like that. It would be through the roof. So if you like 18xx games and you haven't played this one yet, 100% go play this one. If you have played this one, let me know what you think about it in the comments below and what you like about those tweaks over some of the other 18xx games. So big fan of the genre. And that does it. I'll see you at Dice Tower East in just a couple weeks.